Hello, in this video we will continue where we left off in the previous one, which will be texturing our terrain. Here we have the graph for the shape itself of the terrain, and the texturing process works exactly the same. We connect nodes and work with masks and colors textures to achieve the final result. So let's go to the last node here and let's move the camera a little bit down, right click, and for texturing you usually work with data, that are the masks, and color, that are the textures. The masks simply define a region where we apply the texture. The most commonly used are the height, the slope, the texture, and the soil. And then the color, it's simply the texture themselves, they are just colors. So let's take a data soil map. Let's place it here, and as you can see, it gives an error. It's not working. That's because we must connect it, the input, to the output of our latest node that forms the shape of a terrain. In this case, it's the micro erosion. Now, there are two ways to connect a shape node like this to a mask like this. The first way is to simply take the output of the micro erosion and place it to the input of a soil. However, the second option, which is the best, is to create a portal. To create a portal, simply left click and drag from the output and release the mouse on the blank space, and then click Make Portal. A portal is a connection between two nodes. It can be made with any nodes, and in this case we want the micro erosion to be connected with the soil. So let's take the input of a soil and do the same process, portals, and in this case, micro erosion output. This will connect the micro erosion output to the soil node. And now they are connected. However, we have a strange result here because it is completely flat and our terrain is gone. This is just the texture. So to display the terrain with the mask, we must go to the micro erosion node. That is the node that we are using for visualization. Right click and set pin as an underlay, or G hotkey. Now if you go back to the soil node, as you can see, the mask is applied to the terrain and we see both the terrain and the mask. The soil node, it's a very useful node, one of the most important ones for texturing, because it takes into account all the cracks, rivers, as well as the slope of the terrain. We also have other masks that I want to go through. We have, for example, the slope. The slope is just a mask that take into consideration the slope angle of the terrain. So the white areas is where the texture is applied, and the black areas it's where nothing will happen. Then we have the height, that it's a very simple mask. Simply you can choose a minimum height value and a maximum height value, and as you can see, if I change it, the mask change. Very simple and very straightforward. Finally, we have a texture. The texture is a very complex mask, one of the most complex inside Gaea, and it takes into consideration many parameters such as slope, soil, as well as patches of grass and so on. Okay, I only have the soil node, and also let's bump the resolution to 2K, because for texturing I recommend using a 2K resolution because you will have a lot of more details. And the colors will also be different. 4K, it's a bit of an overkill. Okay, so let's start texturing. And I have a soil node selected. Let's enable the graded. The graded, you should also always have it enabled because it will give you a nice gradient that's very similar to the texture one, to the texture node. And you can create with a graded node an uniform texture for your terrain. If you don't have it selected, as you can clearly see, it will only highlight the cracks, rivers and so on. Then I simply connect under the color category asset maps. Set maps are satellite maps that are taken into different regions of our world, and they are the most realistic ones that you can find inside Gaea. You also have other options for texturing. I'll show you just a few. We have a quick color. Quick color is used, you have two colors to choose from, and as the name implies, it's just a simple color that mix between the two colors that you choose. It can be useful for maybe sand or very simple texturing. Then we have clutter. Clutter is a gradient where you choose the color that you want, like in the case of a quick color, and you can add more colors to the gradient by simply left clicking on it, and you have some parameters like the noise, clarity, and this kind of stuff. As you can see, we are mixing all together, and this can be useful if you don't want to use the set maps, but I don't really recommend it because set maps are more realistic. Then we have the mixer node that is used for mixing texture together. We'll see it later. Color effects for color correction, and vegetation for adding vegetation to the terrain. You also have other nodes that I won't explain because it will be too long. Let's go to the set maps and let's start with texturing process. Now I want this to be a greenish mountain. Here we have a library where you can choose from rocky, sandy, green and other stuff. Now I'll simply choose a gradient that I like from the list. You have a list for every category. My recommendation is to not use very complex gradients like this one, because they usually don't look very good on their own. So it's better to stay on a simple or more intermediate gradient like this one that doesn't have a lot of colors mixed between them. All the other parameters you can leave them as a default, aside for the reverse. Reverse simply switch the texture so you can obtain different results. So I'll find the texture that I like and I'll see you in a moment. So at the end I chose the number 377. I may change it in the future, but for now let's leave it. And then we need, I think that we can bring up a texture node. Let's make a portal like we did before, portals, micro erosion output. After that we can take another set maps and let's choose another texture that we like. You can texture the terrain as you wish. I want to create a rocky mountain with some grass on it, so I'm choosing textures that resemble it. Okay, I think that the number 66 it's good looking. We have some nice gradients. I also really like this white on the rocks. So let's mix these two maps together. Right click, color, mixer. Mixer node works exactly like the combine node, however it's used for mixing color maps together. You have two inputs as well as a mask input if you want to mask certain areas, like maybe I want the green color to only affect the lower areas. I can do that by using maybe like an height or a slope and connect the height to the mask and so on. For the mixer we have the same methods as for the combine, and it's just a matter of experimentation, see what it looks good. I'll tell you that from my experience, the ones that usually looks better are the blend, the max, min, multiply. But let's see. I simply taking a look at the various combined methods and let's see the max. Okay, I think the max is fine. I like this. And we have a ratio. Ratio, it's a blend between the two texture nodes that we have. So the first one is this. And the second one is this. And the result with a combined method set to max with a ratio of 100% is this one. To show you the difference, I switch to blend for a moment. And now if I set the ratio to 0, this means only the first map is displayed, as you can clearly see. If I set the ratio to 100%, only the second map is displayed. And if I set it to a middle value, it's a mix between the two. But in this case, we want the max 100%. So we bring up those white details that looks very good. Then we can take it one step further. First of all, I want to try adding another soil node between the stack maps and this one and see what is the final result. So let's search for soil. And you can stack multiple masks one after each other. By doing that, you will obtain a lot of more details. However, they don't always looks good at the end. From my experience, for desertic terrains, stacking two soils nodes together works well. However, for greenish mountains like this one, they usually don't look very good. But let's see. Okay, we have a lot of more details, some noise. Let's try to bypass this node by pressing the B key with the node selected. So we only see the first soil node. Okay, in this case, I think that I will stick with only one soil. It looks better to me. After that, we can continue adding colored maps as well as mask, like we did here. For example, maybe if I want more details on the rocks, I can do that. I will show you how to mask it. So let's take a data slope mask. Let's connect it with the portal. Then we will take set maps. Let's connect it with the texture. And I want, let's stay on the rocky side. You know what? Let's try this. This reddish colors that resemble some dirt. It's looking quite good. So I will use this map. And let's take another mixer, Ctrl C and Ctrl V to duplicate it. I want to mix all these maps with this one. And remember, if you can reutilize a node, then do it, because it will save on build time, especially for a texture node that is very, very heavy to build. So let's take this mixer, that is the combined result of these two maps, and let's take the new set maps with the reddish looking rocks. Let's set this to blend, and now I'll show you how to mask areas to only apply the texture, for example, to this slope here. Let's take the slope node, let's connect it to the mask of our mixer, then with the method set to blend, ratio 100%. Now let's try inverting the slope, swap the inputs, and yes, as you can see, it is masked because we have this slope that is connected to the mask input. So as you can see here, we have the black areas. The black areas are the unaffected areas. What I did was to simply set those enable the swap inputs, and by doing that I swapped the black and white, so the peaks here becomes the affected areas, and all the bottom, the floor here, is unaffected by the reddish color. If you don't enable it, as you can see, this is before and this is after. It's more, yes, it looks like it has some dirt on the terrain, and I like it. Yeah, I think that I will keep it. We can add finally a vegetation node if you want. Vegetation node, it's a very useful node for adding trees and grass to your terrains. You can export it as a mask if you want to maybe use it inside a game engine to procedurally place trees, but you can also use it for texturing. It is automatically connected here, and I don't see a lot of going on, so let's bump up some parameters, and I think that it's due to the slope. Let's see, slope bottom, let's bump it up. Yes, okay. As you can see now, these two parameters, slope bottom and slope top, it simply means the degree angles where the vegetation grows. So if you change the parameters, the vegetation will grow in different heights of a terrain. So this is before, this is after. However, it's too strong, so let's reduce it to default everything. The density is simply the amount of vegetation that you have. The occurrence, it's how many patches of grass you have around your terrain, and the scale is the general scale of a vegetation, the size. Okay, so these are the final parameters that I went at the end. I just changed the density to have more grass, and the slope bottom to affect some higher areas. And we have a pretty nice result. This is before and this is after. And as you can see, the vegetation node has 3 inputs. The most important one are these two. The first input obviously go to the previous color maps, because the vegetation must be connected to a color maps, not a mask like the soil. And it's also, you should also place it at the end of your texturing process. then the height is automatically connected to your last node of the chain that we used for creating the shape of a terrain. Okay, this is it for the texturing process. Hope you enjoyed. As you can see, it's not very difficult for texturing a mountain like this. If you are creating maybe a desertic terrain, it becomes more complicated, but at the end of the day, it's just the same as creating your shape. You connect nodes, you first of all place the mask, then you connect the mask to a color node, like the set maps, you mix them together, and that's it. In the next video, we will do some color correction and do the final touches. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to stay up to date with the latest content. If you have any question, comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.
Eyes in the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light